Welcome back to Same Bright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful draped gown, as you can see, with scallops, and it has a structured sleeve. Okay, so this structured sleeve, I have a tutorial already on this channel. Okay, I'll be dropping the link on the description box below for you to watch. This is actually a very beautiful gown and is actually trending as well. So you can see the scallops right there. I'm going to bead it later. So here I'm making use of 4 yards of Ankara fabric and 2 yards of raw silk fabric. You can use Duffel satin fabric, you can use raw silk, any fabric that can pleat very well. So before we start off this tutorial, we'll be using our basic bodice pattern for this gown. So I have my front and my back bodice. So here I have the chest line, bust point, under bust and waist line. So of course you know how to draft your basic bodice pattern. So if you don't know how to draft it, you can go ahead and watch on the channel too. So my bust dart is 2 inches and my waist dart is 1.5. I replaced it, and the back is shorter by 2 inches because of the bust dart technique. So the first thing I'll do is to divide my shoulder into 2. But meanwhile, I'm using 3 inches as my natural neckline. So I'm going to divide my shoulder into 2. My shoulder line, I'm going to connect to my bust point. So what I'm actually doing right here is to create the over bust. So I place my tape to determine my neckline. So the neckline I'm working with here is 5.5 inches, but 6 inches is standard. So but I decided to use 5.5 because I don't want to expose my bust area. So I'm going to come down with my neckline. The neckline I'm using here is 7 inches. You can also take your cleave line at 8 inches. So I just looked at what my bust radius is and check if it is going to expose my bust. So you can just go ahead and take your measurement of your neckline where you want it to be. But for me, I'm using 7 inches for this class. So now I'm going to create my over bust dart. I'll come out by 0.75 and 0.75, and I'm going to connect to the bust point directly. Of course, you know how to go about this, okay? So now I'm going to create my sweetheart neckline. You can see how I place my pattern ruler from that point to that 7 inches. I'm going to create my sweetheart neckline. So but if you want it to go a little bit down, you can do 7.5 or 8 inches if you want to have a really sweetheart neckline. So I actually connected to 8 inches, but I noticed that 8 inches will expose my bust. So after connecting it, I have to cancel the 8 inches and return back to what I had. Of course, you will see how I'm going to come back to the former 7 inches. So the neckline is just by your choice. The depth is your choice, okay? But for me, I don't want any exposure, so I have to come back. I went down by 8 inches and cancel the 7 inches I connected, but later I returned back to the 7 inches from the shoulder line. Okay, I made my final decision and returned back. So now I'm going to contour my under bust. From the center front, I'm going to contour my under bust. So I'm using my under bust circumference divided by 4. What I have left here is 1.75. So I will now put 0.25 in front and the rest of 1.5 for my bust contour line. So you can just go ahead and use any contour or tightening under bust of your choice, but I love to use this one because it's perfect for every size. So here I'm connecting with my pattern ruler to the points I just contoured right now. So I'll connect it to the waist dart. As you can see, my waist dart is 1.5 and I replaced it on the waistline too. So here is the yoke which I'm going to use for this particular dress. We are going to cut out the yoke and attach it back to the bustier. So that is my yoke. So the width of my yoke is 2.5. I actually made it 3 inches, but now I'm cancelling it out because I just don't want it to be too big. So I return back to the 2.25. So you can make the width of your yoke line 2.25, and it's also very perfect for you. So I connected to 2.25 width for that particular yoke. So now the front dress is actually very much ready. So like I said, on the neckline depth I had to go back to 7 inches because I don't want to expose. So but it's all by choice. So now we want to go over to the back. For the back I'm still using 2.25, which was what I used. So the neckline I contoured by 1 inch, and from that contour line I started to replace all my darts. Okay, so I drafted this pattern and I'm explaining what I did. For my 2 inches is the depth of my neckline for the back, and I came in by 2.5 from the side, just as the yoke is. So right now I'm cutting out, as you can see. So I'm cutting out all the sides of the pattern. So the back is actually very easy. It's just very easy. You can create any neckline of your choice, but for the back you can see the neckline is a high neck, because when you have structure it's always good to use a high neck for the back so it does not fall out. Okay, so if you use a deeper neckline for the back it can fall out. So here is what I have as my patterns. My patterns are ready. This part of this tutorial is not the main business of this tutorial, so you can go about the front and the back pattern the way you know how. So here I've cut out my patterns and I added half an inch, and added 2 inches on the sides, 1 inch for my zipper allowance, and you can see I cut out my yoke. So I'm going to make a notch at the under bust because I want to sew the bustier right now. So now I'm taking off my pins and I want to create my bustier padding. So I always like to use my pattern. If you have been following Simrite Fashion Academy YouTube channel, I like to use my pattern to create my wadding bustier. So I'll just use my bust radius all around, as you can see right now. I'll just cut off and use it to cut out my feasible fleece, as some countries can call it, or wadding. So it's generally known as wadding. So I'm going to use the wadding to pad my bustier. So but I have to cut out a pattern for it. So here I've cut out and I placed it on the main fabric. So here I've placed my hairstay to cover it, as you can see. So I'll head over to the sewing machine right now, match the under bust and sew from the down part to form the bustier. I'll repeat the same process for the lining too. I did not pad the lining, so you can see the beautiful bustier I have and my lining. There is no padding to it. So the bustier is ready. We'll move over to the yoke. So I'm taking off the pattern from the yoke and I'll place them right side to right side, lining and fabric, and I'm going to sew only on one side of it. After sewing, I'm going to also top stitch the part I'm pinning right away. So but first of all, make sure you pin it before you stitch so you have it accurately done. So here I'm done stitching and I've also top stitched and I gave it a good press. So I'm going to place the part I notched. I notched a part that will be at the seam line, and that is where I am securing with my pin right now. So I'll just pin it, as you can see. So I'll take my time and make sure it aligns the way the curvy part of that place is. That is how I stitched it. So I'll push in the yoke and I'm going to cover it with my lining, making sure I match all my seam lines. As you can see, the bust point, I match them accordingly. So after that is done, the next thing I will do now is to go over to the sewing machine. After matching the center, front and the darts, I'm going to stitch on my sewing machine. Here I'm done stitching. The next I'm going to do is to make my notches. Don't forget to make notches so you'll be able to top stitch well and cut off the bulky part of the seam lines. So I will move over to top stitch right now, and I'm going to flip all my seams to the lining, as you can see, and I'll top stitch accordingly, and I've given it a good press. You can see what we have right here. So next is to go over to the back. So for the back, after taking off the pattern, I'm going to sew only the neckline only the neckline. So I'll place the fabric and place the lining right side to right side of the fabric. So after that is done, I'll just move ahead to the sewing machine and stitch the neckline and top stitch as well. So here I'm done top stitching and I ironed. So the front and the back upper piece of this dress is ready. So we'll go over to the down piece right now. So I'm going to cut the down part of this my skirt. So I'm cutting it as a pencil skirt. So the width I have here is my hip circumference divided by 4. Then I added 4 inches to it. If I have excess, I'll cut it off. So here is my waistline, and I placed my natural waistline, which is the half length of 17 inches. Then from that point, I marked my hip line at 29 inches. And from that point, I marked my knee line and counted 4 inches up and marked at 38 inches. Then I took the full length of this dress at 61 inches, including my seam allowances. So here I'm ruling the vertical lines which I just created right now. So the fabric here is on fold. Remember, we are cutting the front skirt piece. Okay, the down part of this gown, I'm cutting the front piece of it. So I'll place my tape on the waistline and take the measurement of my waist, divide by 4. There is no dart to this dress, so I'll just add my seam allowance of 2 inches. I'll go over to the hip. My hip divide by 4. I have 12 inches. I'll add 2 inches for seam allowance. Then I'll go over to the knee. So whatever I got from the waist, from the hip, I got 14 inches. I took away 2 inches and came to the knee line and marked 12 inches. And repeated the same thing on the hem. I marked 12 inches as well. So I'm going to connect the hem to the hip with a straight ruler. And then from the knee to the hip, I'm going to connect it with my hip curve. You can see how I'm connecting it. And then from the hip to the waist, I'll also continue with my hip curve. So here I've made the down part of this dress. That is the front piece. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the lines. Okay, so you just move ahead to cut out the front piece of this skirt, but please make sure you cross check your measurements to be sure the measurements are accurate. So that is what I'm doing before I cut. Okay, so here I'm going to cut my front piece of my skirt. So I will add 0.5 inch on top to stitch the down part to the upper piece. So my front piece is ready, and I folded my fabric into 2 again to cut the back piece. So I'm going to place the front piece on the back piece, and I created my zipper allowance of 1 inch. So my zipper allowance is in front at the center front area because we have the zipper allowance at the center back. So I'm going to create 1 inch from top to bottom, and that will serve as our zipper allowance. So I'm going to rule my line across, creating the zipper allowance for the back piece of this dress. So of course you know how to draft your skirt. So the only difference we have here is that we started from the waistline at 17 inches, okay, because we are going to attach this gown to the upper piece of the gown. So here I'm trying to place the center front to the zipper allowance line, and I'm extending all the lines, the knee, the hip, the hem, and the waistline. So now we are going to contour the back with 1 inch. Remember, we contoured our upper piece with 1 inch. So I will mark 1 inch on that zipper allowance. For the knee line, I'll also mark 1 inch. The hip, we are not marking anything. So just look at how I place my ruler to contour that back. That is the butt allowance which I'm giving for this particular gown. So I'll just mark from the hip to nothing on the waist, and mark from the hip to nothing on the knee line. Then from that knee line, I'm going to cut off that 1 inch to the hem. I will cut it off. But then we are going to replace everything on the side of the skirt. The 1 inch we took away from the knee, I'm replacing it. And the hip, nothing was taken. On the waist, 1 inch was taken, I replaced. So I will move over to connect with my hip curve. So I'm going to connect the chalk lines. Then for the down part, I'm going to continue the 1 inch we are going to cut off on that side. I'm going to add it on the side, 1 inch, 1 inch like that. Then I'm going to use my straight rule to rule that 1 inch from the knee to the hem. Then we cut off. So the basket is very much ready right now. Next is to cut on the chalk lines. So I just move ahead to cut on the chalk lines, the basket, the back piece of this gown. And I want you to watch very closely how I'm cutting it off. So this part, I'm cutting it off because of the butt allowance. So I'll cut it to the waistline. So I'm going to add a 0.5 inch seam allowance on the waistline right now. So the skirt piece is ready for the down, both back and front. So I'm going to make a notch for my 1 inch zipper allowance. So make sure you make a notch, okay? So you'll be able to identify the zipper part and the side. So this skirt right now is very much ready. The next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to pick them up and cut their lining. So here I've cut the lining for the front. So you can see the lining is shorter by 1 inch. So just make your lining shorter by 1 inch. Now the back is also ready, and I also made it shorter by 1 inch, and I made a notch on the lining for the zipper part. So next is to attach the upper piece to the down piece. So I'll go over to attach the skirt part to the fabric skirt part. I'll attach it to the upper part, and the lining skirt part, I'll also bring it and attach to the lining part. So I'll go over to the sewing machine now, and I'm going to join them together. So you can see what I have. I gave it a good press as well. So next is the back. I'll move ahead to also attach the back accordingly, the fabric to fabric and the lining to lining. I'll attach all of them. So here you can see I have the front. So I want to just finish up the front. I'll turn it to the other side, that is the front piece, and I'm going to stitch. So since the lining is shorter, you can see what we have for the front piece, okay? So now for the back, I'm going to pick up the back and I'm going to match them together so we can attach our zipper. So from the waistline, I like to go down by 9 inches because I have a zipper I'm going to attach from neckline to the hip line. So I'm going to mark my 1 inch from that point down. So the 1 inch I'm marking from that point, from the 9 inches from the waistline, I'm going to use it to stitch this down the center back part together, so to create the zipper, the part for the zipper. So I'm going to secure with my pin right now, and I will go over to the machine to stitch. So I'm just going to stitch this part fabric to fabric and lining to lining. So I'll go over to the machine. So here you can see what I have. So I left the part for the zipper open. So next I'll go over to stitch my zipper. So I'm just taking the measurement of my slit. So my slit should be at my knee line, okay? My knee line is 41 inches. That is where I stopped my slit. So you can see I created a space for my slit. It should be at your knee line or above your knee line. So I will attach my zipper right now. So I'll first sew my zip on the fabric first. Then after sewing my zip on the fabric, I marked 1 inch actually. So if you want to get it correctly, just mark a line and follow that line to sew your zipper. So that is exactly what I want to do now, and I've done that. So I will turn it with my lining right away. So I will also go to the machine and follow the stitching line accordingly and stitch the lining on the fabric, leaving my zipper alone. So I'm using this method because I want a perfect inseam finishing for my zipper part only. But the size of this skirt, we are going to sew the side of this skirt just like normal sewing. So I'm going to finish up the slit right now. You can see how I flipped it to the wrong side, and I'm going to follow the stitches and run it up to leaving 0.5 inch. So I will just leave 0.5 inch on the down part. So I'll also repeat the same process on the other side. So here you can see I gave my slit a good press. So now the next thing I'm going to do, the 0.5 inch, I'll flip it to the other side, and I'm going to stitch at 0.5 from the beginning to the end. So once I am done stitching, I will close up the opening. So here you can see my slit is very much ready. Like I said, this is not the main purpose of this tutorial. The main purpose of this tutorial is the draping. So now we move over to the draping. So you are going to fold your paper, your cardboard paper, fold it into two, or any paper. Just follow this process, fold it and create your border line. So I'm going to create my border line right now. So I'll rule a line across, and I call that line my border line. So this line, I'll name it my chest line. Okay, then I'll place 9 inches, which is my chest line, on that border line, and I'm going to mark my bust, under bust, at 14 inches, and my upper hip line here, I counted my hip line 3 inches above, and here I have 25 inches. Okay, so I'm marking my upper hip at 25 inches, and I'm marking my bust, under bust, at 14 inches. So here is my center front. So the next we are going to do now is to start drafting the drape. So you can drape on the bodies, but I know many of us will not be able to drape on the body. So we are using this pattern for this draping, and it came out well, as you can see. So just go ahead and open up your paper and rule your line, extend all those lines, your chest line, the under bust, and the upper hip line, which I took at 25 inches. The width of this paper should be your hip divide by 2. So my hip divide by 2, I'm using 24 inches. That is the width. Okay, so if I open up the paper, it's my full front hip measurement. So I'll come down by 1 inch on the chest line and come up by 1 inch from the upper hip, and I'll use my straight ruler and connect 1 inch from the upper hip and 1 inch below the chest line. I'm going to connect a straight line. So you just go ahead and connect a straight line like that. So after connecting that straight line, right now we will now start to mark the scallops. So but first I will come down from I'm going to take the measurement of a quarter of my hip. So this is quarter of my hip at 12 inches. I also mark it on the other side. So the upper part should also be the same quarter of our hip. Okay, put together will give us half of the hip. So I will come down by 2 inches from the upper hip, and at the center I'll also extend the line. So what I'm doing here now is extension of the upper hip by 2 inches. My upper hip was 25, so when I extended it, I got 27 inches. So I'll use it to create the scallops. So now in creating the scallops, I'm going to come from the center front by 2 inches and come the other way by 3 inches. Okay, so you can reduce it if you're on a smaller size. Okay, so you can do 1.5 inch or 2.5. That's if you're on a smaller size, but if you are not, just go ahead and do 2 inches and 3 inches and connect. So you can see the first scallop is at 5 inches and the next one is at 4 inches. So once I mark 4 inches, I'll connect, and I'll place my ruler this way and connect too. So that is how I got the second scallop. So now I'm going to also come up by 0.5 from that broken line, 0.5, and then I'm going to rule another broken line because that part should be smaller. So I'm going to connect it as well. So I'm going to repeat what I did on this side on the other side. So I'm going to measure 4 inches, which I measured on the side of the center scallop. So I'll measure that 4 inches and connect. Then I'll also come up by 0.5 inch on the broken line and also connect like I did on the other side as well. So you can see how I'm connecting this. So we are done with the drafting right now. So the next thing we are going to do is to cut out this pattern. So I'll just move ahead and follow the lines, as you can see. Follow the scallops, and I'm going to cut them off accordingly. So that is the pattern for us. So this pattern right now, I'm just test running it on the body to see if it will actually work out well. So I'm just placing it to see what the full length is. Although we are supposed to drop it at 27 inches because that is where the length of the scallop is according to my hip line. So now I'm cutting it on my pattern. I just use the raw silk fabric to cut it. So if you are using doll face, it means you will use doll face. So I added extra seam allowance on this side of about 5 inches because it's good you have an excess than you have a shortage. So I added extra seam allowance, 5 inches on both pattern sides, then half an inch on the slanted area. So now this is very ready. So we have 2 pieces of it. This is the base for our drape. So now coming over to the drape, I'm just placing it to show you how it's going to look like before we drape. So make sure you mark the wrong sides because we are going to drape on the front side. So I have two yards of raw silk right now, so I'm going to divide it into 2, 1 yard for each base. So here I've divided it 1 yard for each base. So now I'm going to open up this part and I'm going to pleat. So I'm going over to the machine right now to show you how I pleated this draping. So you keep pleating it, as you can see right here. So I'll keep pleating and pleating till I get to the end of the 1 yard. Okay, so this comes at 60 inches. So I've pleated all of them. Then I turn to the other part and also continue the pleating. So make sure the size of your pleat is equal on both sides so that when you start ironing them, you have everything well pleated. So here on the ironing table, I just want to show you how I'm pleating it. So I'm just pleating little by little and ironing. So you not pleat everything at once. You just take them little by little. If you have a steam iron, better. If you don't have, you can place a fabric like I'm placing and then move ahead to iron them. So it is your ironing that will make the pleat to relax. Okay, if you don't iron, it's not going to relax. So make sure you iron, as you can see. So any part I pleat, I'll just go ahead and iron it. Any part I pleat, I'll just go ahead and iron it. So that is how I kept pleating this till I got to the end. So I'm pleating only one part of it. Remember, there are 2 pieces. So it's actually a very big work anyway. The draping part of this is actually a big work, but it's worth it as well. So here is the process of the ironing and the pleating. So I will pick the pleats, as you can see. So that is what I kept doing till I got to the end of both of them. Okay, so you just have to be patient while doing this. So your pleating can be bold, your pleating can be very small. So I decide to make it small. When it's small, it looks finer than when it's bold. So I decided to make tiny pleats, but it's actually a very big work for me. So I will keep pleating till I get to the end anyway. So of course you have seen the process I used in pleating. So sorry this part was actually very long because I wanted you to see what I was doing from start to finish. So right here I'm done, and this is the base. I'll place the pleat on the base. So I'll place it on the base. You can see how I placed it on the slanted part. So now we are going to, this is how it's supposed to be, but we are supposed to stitch the base and the pleats. So what I did was to raise the pleats up again and place the base on top of it and stitched on top and top stitched. So I went over to the sewing machine and I stitched and top stitched. So here you can see my stitching and top stitching. So I now turned it to the right side. So you can see how it looks like when I turned it. So I'm going to secure with my pins right now. So after securing with my pin appropriately, I moved ahead to the machine to stitch the scallops and the sides to keep them in place on the base. So you can see that part was because I cut out my 1 yard of fabric for the base. So but I'm going to fill it up. So here I'm done stitching, so I'm just going to cut out the scallops. So after cutting out the scallops, I use part of the remaining pleats I have there because I had a little shortage the other way. So but I patched it up. Okay, you can see where I have the shortage, so I placed the pieces right there to patch it up. So I will encourage you to get 2.5 yards of raw silk so that you use half for the base and 2 full yards for the draping. So I'm just trying to trim off the part I patched right now. So that is how to create the base for this dress. So I'm going to repeat this for the other part as well. So these are the 2 pieces, as you can see. So I want you to watch how I'm placing them. You can see how I'm placing them center to center like that, and it laps accordingly. So the next thing I'm going to do is to secure all the scallops. The 2 scallops, I'm going to secure the both of them together. So I'll go over to the machine to stitch them together. But before that, I just thought of creating more scallops, but you can leave it the way it is. But actually I extended or created my scallop. I went up by 1 inch more to create more scallops. Okay, but that is by choice, but what we have is okay. So I'm going to stitch following my chalk line because I extended by 1 inch right now. So I'll just move ahead to stitch on the machine the way I extended it. So like I said, you can sew it the way it is. You can extend if you want. So here I'm done sewing and I'm cutting off those parts I extended. Okay, so I'm cutting them off. So we are going to finish up these scallops with our bias. So I got a matching bias, and that is what I used to finish up the scallops. So I'll place the bias, as you can see right there. So I'm still trying to cut off. So this is my bias. You can see what the back looks like. So I will just go over to the machine and place my bias at the back, just like we use our bias, and this is it. It's looking so beautiful. I gave it a good press as well. So next is to place this drape on the body of the dress. So we are not doing any inseam finishing. I'm joining both fabric and lining together, no inseam. So I just took my measurement at that 27 inches and marked, because that is where I'm going to drop the scallop. As we measured, you can see I'm retaking it from the pattern. So at that 27 inches I placed the scallop. Okay, so the center front, mark it and make sure the the part that crossed each other is at the center front, and the scallop is at that 27 inches. And when you place it, automatically you notice that the side from the chest line is at 1.5 inch. We took 1 inch down, but because of seam allowance you have it at 1.5 inch. So I'm just taking the measurement to be sure it's at 1.5 inch. So I will just go ahead and pin. We are almost done. Just pin the sides and go over to the machine and stitch, as you can see. So I took my measurement, my body measurement, before I stitched. So I'm cutting out the excess. So make sure you take your body measurement after pinning, so that when you are stitching the front and back together, everything will fall in place. So here the front dress is ready, and this is the main purpose of this tutorial. So next is to fit the back. So I've already fitted my back. As you can see, I have to mark my fitting, my waist, my bust, and my hip divide by 2. So I'm going to close up the neckline first. Okay, so this is how I close my neckline. Then I'll also close up the size of this dress, and the dress is ready. So we are going to move over to the sleeve. I have a detailed video on how to make this sleeve, but I just want to show you the drafting of it. Then you can go back and watch. So you come in by 6 inches from the folded part of your fabric. You rule your line. So I'm drafting on the lining. Then from the shoulder line, you come down by 4 inches. 4 inches. Then you are going to bring back your pattern, basic sleeve pattern. So I folded it at 13 inches, my basic sleeve pattern. So make sure you have it at 13 inches. Okay, so I have it at 13 inches. So then I ruled a straight line from the point of my basic sleeve to touch the 13 inches line. Now I'm going to create my sleeve curve to that 4 inches. So that was how I did that. So I took off my basic sleeve. So I will come down by 10 inches from the top. You can also come down by 8 inches if you want. So I came down by 10 inches, and make sure it's curvy. Make sure this part is curvy. You see how I'm curving it, okay? Don't make it slanted, make it curvy. Then we are done with the sleeve. So I now went ahead to cut it out. So I just want to show you the real drafting. But for the sewing of that sleeve is on this channel. I'll also drop the link on the description box below. I didn't want this video to be too long. So here you can see my sleeve is looking beautiful. I've added my fringes and I've pleated it. So I'll just sew it to the dress right now. So I believe you learned a lot from this tutorial. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell. Don't forget to like this video, share to family and friends so that other people will see this video and it goes viral for me, okay? So it actually took a lot of time for me to come out with this dress. So you can see the dress is so beautiful here. So next is to bead the down part of it. Later I will go ahead to bead to enhance the beauty of this particular dress. So this dress is actually gorgeous. So thank you for following Simrite Fashion Academy YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more videos. We upload videos on this channel every day. Thank you and see you. Bye.